Hello and welcome to the show. Today I'm going to be driving Willy Big Cheese around a very snowy Nurburgring. This is the Lotus Type 56, a very peculiar car. A very peculiar car indeed, because it is powered by pretty much a jet engine in this. The turbine engine in this, while it isn't powered by jet thrust, the engine itself is effectively a jet engine, but it's used to create, well, it's a turbo shaft engine, so it's designed to create shaft drive power rather than jet thrust, but it is, for all intents and purposes, a jet engine in this. And it's, going to go racing around a snowy Nurburgring. It was designed as an Indy car in the 60s. It is all-wheel drive, and I am not really wanting to do too many all-wheel drive cars early on in this series because, well, funnily enough, they're going to be suitable. However, this is suitably weird and wacky that I'm going to give it a try. It might end up being really quite fast. It might end up easily going to the top of the table, but it is a weird car. It is a weird car indeed, so I don't really know, basically. We're going to go and find out. We're going to see how the Type 56 is going to manage. Apparently it'll do 200 miles an hour. Possibly. Certainly in normal conditions it probably could do 200 miles an hour. In these conditions, no. Basically, it's not going to happen. The good news, of course, for the car being all-wheel drive is we are going to have traction. We're going to be able to put the power down. I don't quite know how the power delivery is going to work. I have driven this car around a little bit in the dry. Because it's such a weird vehicle, I did some practice at a completely different circuit in the dry to vaguely get a feel for the car. Quite understeery, I found it to be. Actually, do we have... I don't know, while I think about it... Okay, so I wonder if there's any way you could, like, turn up the jet engine in it. You can't. It was worth a look, just in case. Yeah, so I've done a little brief bit of driving to get some experience with the vehicle. You have kind of a very strange driving position as well in all of this. And it is the most bizarre noise I think I have heard. Either way, let us go. Whoa, bloody hell. So, of course, we have got some launch in this. We have got some... And let's not forget, this is a 500 horsepower car, so you are effectively driving a 500 horsepower all-wheel drive classic Indy car. So, yeah, it's got some launch about it, and in these conditions it is actually going to get off the line quite impressively well compared to what we have seen go before. The issue is then going to be when we get to these corners. It was quite understeery in the in the dry, in the normal conditions that I drove it in, and I'm already, oh god, beginning to feel that understeer coming in here. Look at that. God, that just doesn't turn. Really doesn't turn at all. Carefully does it. It's going to be a... Whoa, no. Kind of drive it like a point and squirt car. Drive it like a point and squirt car. Slow into the corners, and then once we're out of the corners, then we can just, go for it. But we're going to have to be real slow into some of these corners, I suspect, because I don't think... We've not really got the grip. Of course, we don't have much in the way of downforce. You saw the look of the car. It's a wedge. As I say, I'm going to call it the Willy Big Cheese because it kind of reminds me quite a lot of that robot. Yeah, there is no downforce, so to speak. So the faster we go, we're not going to be getting any more grip. There's none of that helping push the car into the ground. It's all about the tyres here. Now, it should, and in fact it is, easier to drive than perhaps I was expecting. It might become a bit fiddly when we get to the more technical sections later around the lab. But here, because I can be very aggressive with the throttle, we are not having too many issues. I've just got to be very cautious. I don't think through these corners it's going massively fast. It doesn't need to though, because I can now stamp on the power. Very strange. There is no doubt about that. Oh, get off of the curb. Very strange way. Like, it doesn't feel like it's going fast, and then you look down at the speedo and suddenly you realise it is going very fast. Because there's kind of this constant noise from the turbine behind us that it doesn't really feel like it's setting the world alight in terms of speed, but you look at the speedo and you're suddenly doing 150. Oh, where are we going here? Yeah, it's not very nice. It's not very nice at low speed sections. That's what I'm finding. High-speed stuff is not terrible, but once we start getting into the low-speed stuff, it gets all sorts of unhappy. Which is, I was expecting it to be quite understeery everywhere, but the high-speed stuff, the higher speed stuff, it feels not so bad. But once we start getting down to like 30, 40 miles an hour here, like there, it just feels like it doesn't really want to turn in at all. Peculiar, but there we go. We are coming towards, I guess, some tighter corners. Christ, that didn't want to turn in. Brakes I'm having to be very, very careful with as well. I mean, naturally, you're on snow, you're going to have to be careful. This thing, I feel like it's even got... Ooh, I mean, it locks up so easily. But you can see on the speedo, you've got the throttle traces, you've got the braking traces as well. And it doesn't take too much to get this one to lock up. Certainly not, perhaps, in comparison to some of the vehicles that I have driven. Again, yeah, we're on snow. It's always going to be a bit of a difficulty, a bit of an interesting one, trying to get the car slowed down and everything. But, yeah, we're going to be extra careful, I think, under brakes. I don't really trust this car. Oddly, I don't trust this car getting slowed down and getting turned into low-speed stuff. I trust it much more at the higher speed stuff, and of course, on power, there is no real issues. You can just, yeah, stamp and go. In fact, of the many all-wheel drive cars I've messed around with in various games, this thing doesn't feel like, even on snow, you know, when we did a little while ago, messing around with one of the Time Attack Evos at a very snowy Oschersleben in a live stream, that thing, you would put your foot down and it'd be sideways everywhere. I mean, it was controllable, don't get me wrong, it was very controllable. But it was sideways everywhere. This thing, I haven't had the slightest, the faintest hint that it wants to do anything other than grip. Which is helpful. Which is very helpful indeed. I don't know whether that's a nature of this engine, whether it's the giant the giant snow tyres we have got on this. It has got some quite impressively wide tyres on it. But yeah, there is not the slightest hint even that it wants to oversteer, that it wants to cause trouble. And I'm quite impressed by that. I'm very impressed by that one. I also like that you can watch... I shouldn't when I'm, you know, trying to drive around here quickly, but you can watch the front suspension moving around in its housings when you go across the bumps and so on. It's it's one of those things that you can easily get mesmerised watching it do its thing. Oh, they've got the first little bit of oversteer, and that was because we were going over a crest and a curb. Oh, please stop. And then we don't turn. Sure. Oh, there was almost another little bit of oversteer there. Right, it's a weird thing to drive, very weird thing to drive. Now, can we use the banking of the carousel here to get us around? We can very nicely. I have a sneaky suspicion this is probably going to go very quick. Like I was expecting to have more issues with the with the understeer. We have got, as I said, we've got the technical section that we're coming up to now. This is where we might come undone, possibly. Although I would be surprised with it having been so easy to drive elsewhere. Come on. If this doesn't beat the Zonda, I would be very surprised, because the level of control that I've got coming out of these corners is quite impressive. Carousel, no idea what any of the other corners are called around here, and haven't really been paying attention to other cars, so don't know what we're doing in terms of lap speed. There we go, a little bit of oversteer. In fact, in many ways, I think this car, if I could get the as much as it pains me to say this, if I could get the back end of this car moving around, I feel like you could probably do a little bit better with it. You could kind of counter the horrendous understeer that you have going on here if you could get that back end moving. And I'm now not really confident at all in this car's ability to get turned into some of these corners. Come on, Lotus. Come on, make a corner. There we go. There was a turn there. It was a lot of effort, but there was a turn there. Now going towards the mini oh, I do know this corner now. This is the mini carousel, isn't it, as well? Because it's slightly back. We've got a minute and 15 or so seconds to get down the straight, negotiate the chicane, and then we would take a fastest lap around here. It might be closer than I was expecting it to be in many ways to that Zonda. Come on, Lotus. I daren't stamp on the power just yet. Now, show us what you've got from that jet engine. Go! Crack 200 miles an hour. Unlikely, considering we're on snow tyres and the sort of rolling resistance from those is pretty bloody massive. That being said, we are not going slowly down here. We're up to 190 miles an hour. It might be the fastest we've gone down here, actually. 195 in the Lotus. Dare we take this corner flat? No, I don't. I don't trust it to have the grip. It's 170 miles an hour. We're going to lose the back end. Oh, we very nearly went there. A big stop now into this final corner. Good God, that was a little bit terrifying. That was a very bit terrifying, in fact. Oh, come on, we've got one more corner to go. This is going to be amazingly close. I've got to be very slow on the way in here, and it won't turn, but we can stamp on the throttle. Come on, Lotus, go! Use that jet power. It's not going to be enough, and I'm never stopping for turn one here, because we're going to clonk the wall on the other side. Oh, it got very close. It got very close indeed, but not enough. Not enough from the Lotus there. That surprises me in some ways. Like, through those first bits of the lap, it didn't feel... Well, it felt very bloody good. Felt very good indeed, with all of the traction. You know, we could just jump on the power out of the corners, no real problems whatsoever in the Turbine car. When the going got twisty, I knew that's where the Lotus was going to struggle. It is a bit awkward to drive. And, you know, let's not forget here, this is a car from the 60s going up against some modern-day, very high-tech machinery. But the all-wheel drive traction is immense from this. The fact that I have had no problem jumping on the power. This was all understeer that cost the Lotus its lap time. And it will have to settle for second. The Zonda will continue to lead the way by just over a second, is it? Oh, I've got the times right next to me. Yeah, just 1.1 seconds to the Zonda. This is only a little bit quicker. I mean, this is only about 6 seconds faster than the Audi S1, the little hatchback that was the benchmark for this series. The Lotus is only a 6 seconds faster than that, which around the Nurburgring is not much. Around the Nurburgring is not that much at all. So, yeah, that's not quite the result that I was expecting from all of this. However, it was bloody close. It was bloody close indeed. That's what we want to see in terms of this series. Well, there we go. We have a new second-place car, but the Zonda will remain the leader of the snowy Nurburgring lap times. I'm being an idiot. Oh dear! I've been too much of an idiot. Catch it! Catch it! Woo! And there we go. That's it. The Lotus is upside down. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.